This South Carolina native was voted most ambitious in his senior class. He received a bachelor's degree in theater from the original USC, University of South Carolina, then an MFA in acting from Rutgers University. In 2004, he made a breakthrough with his role in Clint Eastwood's $1 Million Baby. In 2005, he played guitar-playing blues singer C.J. Memphis in the revival of A Soldier's Play, which has a special connection to him, which we'll talk about. And he recurred in 21 episodes of The Good Wife as charismatic criminal Lamont Bishop. Other film roles included Men in Black as Will Smith's father in the time travel portion, Zero Dark 30, and Girls Trip. Luke Cage himself, Mike Colter!
Hello. Thank you guys for being here.
So for our format, we're gonna do things a little bit differently. I'm gonna totally rip off James Lipton's Inside the Actor's Studio without all the pretentiousness. Mm-hmm. But I wanna do kind of a deep dive into Mike's background, and then we're gonna open it up for audience questions. So A Soldier's Play.
Yeah.
I heard you saw this as a kid and you were hooked.
I was. I saw it as a kid. It was a movie that I think premiered or came out in 1984. Starts great people like obviously Denzel Washington, Howard Rollins, Adolph Caesar. God, there were so many people. I think it was Dave Valenglier was in that. It was
like
it was a who's who of Black Hollywood. It really was. Everybody in that was so phenomenal. I think Robert Townsend was in it. I mean, there's so many people. You look around, it's like, it really is a who's who's. And for me, it did inspire me. I think that probably was the first time where representation kind of did, matter to me, because for the first time I was going, wow, all these guys are doing it. There got to be something that I can do too, because I wanted to be an actor, and that kind of gave me the strength or the inspiration. As far as superheroes, I was like a Bruce Lee fan, so it didn't matter what color superheroes were. But as an actor, that definitely did resonate with me. So then fast forward to this play happening shortly after $1 Million Baby. There was this play they were doing a second stage, which is off Broadway in New York City, I think like 43rd and 44th Street. This role of CJ came along, and I remember saying to myself, after I talked to my agents, and they were like, this role, I'm like, that's me, I can play that role. And they said, well, they're looking for this guy. And it had been a while. They've been casting for a while. And long story short, when I came in, I said I could play the role, but the role required you to play guitar. And I didn't play guitar at all. At all. I didn't play a lick. I never touched a guitar in my life. But for some reason, I really was confident that I could play the role. So I went to the audition, and Jo Bonnie was there. That's the director. She's a great woman who's done some phenomenal stuff on Broadway. And I auditioned for her. I was sitting in the waiting room, and there was probably, 20 guys in there, and all of them had guitars. Every last one of them. They were tuning their guitars, they were playing their guitars, they were warming up. And here I am over there humming, doing the little clearing my throat and all this stuff. And ultimately, I don't know, I think sometimes when you're young, the confidence, I don't know if it's, just being naive, being just, you just have this thing in you sometimes as an artist. When you're young, I think when you're older, you're trying to find it again. You're fearless. You don't think that you can't do anything, just the way it is. Looking back on it now, I would be terrified. But for some reason, I thought I could do this. I went in, I had an audition, I did all the scenes, and then we talked about the singing, and I sung it a cappella. And she looked at me and she said, I really like you, and I really enjoy what you're doing, but I just wonder, you don't play guitar. And I go, no, but I can learn. And she goes, you really think you can learn the guitar to play it? We open in about six weeks, premiere in 6 weeks, or we open preview in 6 weeks, and how's the dexterity in your fingers? And I go, no, they all work. I'm pretty good, my hands all work. And she said, well, it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of work. And I said, I don't care. I can do it. I said whatever I had to say in that moment. I walked out the door, and I remember getting the call, and I'm thinking to myself, holy, you know what? This is gonna be hard. I ran out, I went to Craigslist, I got 2 guitars, not one, I got 2 guitars. I went to the guitar store, whatever the store is that they have, that's everywhere, it's a big guitar store.
Guitar Center?
Guitar Center, yes. Went there, I got a tuner, I got the picks, I got everything you could think of. Didn't know how to use any of them. Got a video, I think it was a DVD, because that's what we were doing back then, DVDs. And I started, I kept strumming. I started strumming, and then a guy named Steve Barganetti, who's a classically trained guitarist from Juilliard, was assigned to me to help me learn to play the guitar quickly and as efficiently as possible, and also sing. So it was a lot of stuff to take on, but needless to say, fast forward to preview. By the time I got to previews, I went from sitting in the first read-through, people going, what in the world did you do? You guys hired a guy who couldn't play guitar. Everybody was looking around going, I couldn't do anything. And by the time we previewed, about 3 days before preview, it all came together. And I was just playing and strumming and breaking stuff and making noises, and it was horrible music for about 3 weeks. And it finally started to come together. And it really kind of launched me in New York City as far as like an actor who people were like, oh, he's really good, you know. I want to bring him in my room, and I want to have him be reading for stuff, and that's really important and stuff like that. So it was a make or break thing for me, but I came out on the other side, and I'm better for it.
$1 Million Baby. According to IMDb, you didn't meet Clint Eastwood when you got cast for that.
No, not really. No one does. He's, I think he. And I want to say Woody Allen, I think, or there's another one. I'm not sure about anybody else, but as I recall, I've never done a Woody Allen film, but I know Clint Eastwood for sure. He doesn't meet his actors. He puts it on tape, and the casting director puts it on tape, and then Clint watches the tape. Because he's an actor, he's been in the business a long time. He thinks that the best way to get an actor's best performance is to not be in the room with them, because I think he knows the jitters, it just makes it one more thing to have to worry about. And that's a great thing. That's a wonderful thing for him to think about us in that way and think about himself as an actor and understand the process. He knows that it's better for him not to be in the room. And it's also better because he doesn't really want to meet someone and engage with them and then have to then probably not give them the job. And I think he's sensitive to that. He's sensitive to all the stuff that we go through as artists. And so Phyllis Huffman, who was his casting director from, I think, Outlaw Josie Wales in 1975 or so, she was his casting director up until the Letters of Iwo Jima, I think, Flags of Our Father. And sadly, she passed away, I think, around 2007 or 6 or something like that. She was a wonderful woman, God rest her soul. She was the one that kind of gave me my break. She obviously cast me in $1 Million Baby. She cast me in a few other projects, and she told me I did an independent film, and that film had not much for me to do. And I was just breaking in, trying to just get some work. And she said, "There's a role in Clint Eastwood's movie coming up, and I think you're gonna be right for it." And I'm going, "What are you talking about?" Like someone told me. I mean, she told me that, and I literally was like, what? I wanted to say, go away. I just don't even, like, why are you telling me this? Like, telling me that is like telling me, don't worry, things are gonna be great. Tomorrow you're gonna be a star. Like, I'm working in a restaurant, doesn't seem like I'm gonna be a star, and you're telling me that Clint Eastwood has a movie and there's a part in it that could be right for me. Doesn't make sense, doesn't compute. So I didn't think much of it. I auditioned, I went in, and put it on tape. A month later, she calls me back in, we put it on tape, and then I got the job. I remember getting the job. I was in a restaurant, called me, I answered my cell phone, I think it was a flip phone back then. Went downstairs, and I was like, I had a moment. I was like, oh my God, I got a job. I got a really good job. I think this is a good job. And so it was a wonderful process, but I didn't see him until I got on set. I was doing makeup testing, and he came in the trailer, and I remember like yesterday, he was eating a banana. He comes in the trailer, and he was eating the banana. All I could think of was Any Which Way But Loose, and Any Which Way You Can. That's just what I was thinking. Left Clyde, left turn Clyde. I love those movies.
You did a lot of guest star work,
yeah,
including 22 episodes of The Good Wife.
Yeah.
And then eventually you get cast as Luke Cage, and the plan is you're going to be in 5 episodes of Jessica Jones, and you go straight into your own series. Did that put more pressure on you?
Yeah, well, it was 7 episodes. It was like, I think it was 7 out of 13 or something like that. But the pressure, no. I'd like to think, when it comes to pressure, it's always pressure to do everything in life, especially in the business. It's always pressure, expectation. I like to think if you can just find a way to distill it down to one moment at a time. You know, as actors, you know, we try to do one moment at a time. So when I hear all the stuff that I have to do and that's supposed to be expected of me, I just try to forget about that and just then go back to doing my work, because ultimately I can't control all that stuff. So the idea that, yeah, if I did this job, then it was going to lead into this job and lead into this job, I didn't pay attention to any of that, because I knew if I didn't do the first part correctly, I wouldn't be doing the second part. There's no second part if you don't do the first part. So you can't look at the whole thing. It's almost like, you know, you being a really good football team or something like that or whatever, and you know you're thinking about the big game, but you're playing a team that's not that great. That's really what it is. You know, you can't overlook the small team. You can't overlook the small steps, or otherwise you won't get to the next level. And you could be completely right for it. You can be completely prepared for it. You could be the better person or the better team. But if you don't prepare, you don't do what you have to do the first day, and the second day doesn't come. So I was aware of that. So I knew that if I didn't do it right, there was not going to be a pickup of Luke Cage, and they were not going to cast me moving forward. So yeah.
Let's get real.
Yeah.
The concept of a bulletproof black man in the early 21st century has a whole lot more resonance than in the 70s when the character was created. How have the writers organically integrated what's going on in contemporary America on the show?
You know, you say that, and I think I thought that too, because when I first got the role, I mean, it didn't click with me because, to be honest, you know, when we started shooting, and by the time we got to the wrap or the premiere, there was a lot more of a sort of awareness of what was going on socially. There was a lot more commentary about the situation of the black man in America, as far as, like, you know, shootings and things of that nature. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of, you know, wrongful deaths. There's a lot of everything, but it's all gun violence, right? But, you know, now that we're on the internet, we see all this stuff. I think timing was a big part of that. There was a lot of stuff going on. I think Eric Gardner had just happened, and there was Michael, the name escaped me now. I feel terrible about that, but Brown, yes, Michael Brown had just happened. All of that was starting to bubble, and it just kept snowballing. So the presence of Luke Cage was just a thing that seemed to be coincidental, but ultimately, I don't think, you know, much has changed. If we talk about 1960s, what we're dealing with is just the awareness of it. The video is always there. It's not really anything different. We're just talking about seeing it now all the time because everyone has a video camera in their pocket. So it was just, you know, people say it was timing, but it's always been that way. If you had come out with this 10 years ago, if the videos were out, it would be pretty relevant then too. It's all about, you know, what's relative, you know, that's kind of how I felt about it.
One of the great things about your show is your supporting cast is amazing. I mean, Mahershala wins the Oscar.
Yeah.
And then Alfred Woodard as a supervillain.
Yes, I know.
And then the late Reggie Cathy is your dad.
Yeah.
And could you speak about working with any of those three?
Yeah, you know, it was just like you said. It was a great casting. Every season we had wonderful cast members, and I remember thinking to myself, as soon as we got Alfred, I was like, okay, we're legitimized now because we needed a villain. We needed somebody to anchor the show, because the show as a superhero, you're only as good as the villain you face. It's one of those things where you need the villain to be really good, so you can then make the audience, you know, sit up in their seat and to lean forward because they're concerned. They need to feel a connection with the villain. They need to have a visceral reaction when the villain, you know, is present. And I think it always works when you get the right casting. And so when they did it the first season, they really got it really on the head with Mahershala and Alfred, and just creating the world, even the smaller characters, all the peripheral characters that are around. I thought they did a great job with that. I think it's very difficult playing superhero because you're expected to be good all the time. You know, there's very little wiggle room for the superheroes. There's not a lot of gray, and the minute you start adding gray, people feel like, you know, it's hard to then call you a good person, or that's really what, you know, it is. Can you be good if you do anything bad? And I always say, you know, everybody's got something they do bad, but they're usually considered good based off of how much, you know what I mean? Like, no one's one thing at all times, but when you're playing a superhero, it's a pressure to be that one thing all the time. Always good, always like on point, never let people down in any way because you have to be perfect. And so when you're playing a superhero, to try to then still be interesting and to still have these moments where people can relate to you, because let's be honest, most of us sit here, we're thinking about things. You relate to the villain because the villain does things you want to do, or things you do but you don't tell anybody. Right? I mean, come on, let's be honest. I mean, you're sitting on the couch sometimes, you're going, I do that, or I did that. It's what you. But then the other side of that is you aspire to be the superhero because the superhero has a moral compass that's stronger than yours, and then you want to be that. You want to be that in the perfect world, or at least you want your kids to be that. You want your kids to see that. Like, don't do as I do as he does. Like, like look at him. He's a good model because that's what you're supposed to do, the right thing, and it's always that way. So they did a wonderful job casting the characters around, and I loved working with Alfre because I watched Alfre growing up, in all the shows that she was on. There being like 3 channels when I was growing up. I mean, you guys remember that, 3 channels, right? There was no Fox. It was just ABC, NBC, CBS. It was the TV went off. You remember? TV went off, started playing the Star Spangled Banner or something, the flag, and then it went to black. It was like, really? And it's black. Something. It was off. You couldn't watch any more TV. So I would remember watching her all those years doing those great shows, and then I was familiar with rehearsals work because we were in the same age, the same time, around the same era. So I remember watching, and I thought that was the right move. And then bringing Reggie Cathy in the second season, Mustafa Shakir, bringing him on for the second season. I met him years ago, and I was wondering who they're going to cast for Bushmaster, and they had a lot of people they were thinking about, but they really were looking for something specific, and they needed someone for me to be able to sort of fight and sort of be believable that we have a person that he's having problems with, and also care about that character. All these things was something they were considering when they cast, and I think they did a great job.
2018 has been the year of the black superhero, with Black Lightning season 1, Black Panther's phenomenal success at the box office, and Luke Cage season 2.
Yeah.
But you were first.
Yeah.
Why do you think that this is the year that it became accepted?
Well, I like to pay homage to, obviously, even when I was growing up. I mean, there was Blade. There was Blade. I think, right? There's Blade. Wesley Snipes killed it. I like to, because people, it's 20 years. I think every 20 years is a generational thing. So I like to think that I was the first of this generation, of this era that, sort of came back with a reboot of black superheroes, and we kind of led the charge. And I always say we were the jab, whereas Black Panther became the right cross, and then we want to come back with an uppercut, and then you just keep going. Black Lightning, it's combinations. But once the gate was open, to this idea that okay, this is something that we've established and it's fine, and we're going to explore these characters. It opened the door for other people. And our first season was, I feel like our first season was experimental in some regard because we didn't know exactly what was going to work all the time, and we were trying to make a show that everybody liked. It was very difficult. You can establish all these heroes. You have to, do so many things in your first season that you don't have to do your second season. Your second season, you're freer. You can do more. You can just do. We know the world we're in. We know the characters, and we know sort of the backstories. Now we can really play. So I thought the first season was we were like the guinea pig. We come out, it's like we're going to hit it hard, and people are curious. But now our second season, we kind of know what the show is. We know who we are, and everybody else can sort of take that. And I think they saw it, and they were like, you know what? This is working, and they saw what worked, and they came out and just lived in that, and embraced that, the culture and the differences and the people and what they look like and all that stuff. Made you curious. You wanted to go to Wakanda because it didn't seem like any place you'd ever been to. You wanted to go to Harlem because you saw Luke Cage and you go, I don't know, I feel like that's someplace I wouldn't mind going. It seemed like seedy and edgy, but cool and funky and hip, and it just was, all these things in one place. So we were trying to create worlds you guys can relate to.
Thank you. I have one more question, but go ahead and start lining up. So let's talk coffee.
Robust or what kind of coffee are we talking about?
In the comics, Luke and Jessica end up getting married. I don't think that's going to happen in the shows. At least
I don't know.
Where they are now.
I don't know. Yeah.
But you've been coupled with Claire. You've been coupled with Misty. Who do you think Luke should end up with? One of the three of them, or somebody else?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Who should he end up with? Man, it's sometimes I'm like endings are weird because anytime you have an ending, then you can't do anything else with it. And I'm not trying to say that we never will end, because ultimately everything comes to an end. I like open endings where it appears like something could be happening or something is going in a certain direction, but we don't have to bring it to an end. We don't have to finish it. We don't have to complete it. Just allude to it. Like I think he could end up with any one of the women that he's been with, or he could be with someone else, you know, or he could be alone, you know. It's like, you know, you never know.
Over here.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Usagi Zukina, and I have, I guess, a double question.